I think you have to be a little bit a different type of social life.
More hippies and weirdos.
Semi-anti-government.
More eclectic people.
You know, into the music scene.
Artsy majors.
More interested in
vegetarian options.
Smoking pot, putting on festivals, and wearing capes.
That's why they have their,
Hogwarts. It's just a big old castle.
Quidditch. That's why they have their Quidditch tournament.
But yeah, I think it's the general consensus.
Today, we are starting to unravel the mystery that is Collins' dorm from the people that live and work there. We start with Collins' unique facilities and history. Unlike most dorms on campus, Collins is made of separate buildings spread up and down the intersection, 10th and Woodlawn.
Collins is the oldest residence hall on campus. Before it was built, there wasn't any housing that was actually provided by the university, but students lived in private boarding houses and Greek houses.
And that is Smith, and that was built in 1924. It's actually the oldest residence hall on campus. And then this building that we're in right now, Edmondson, and then the building next to it, Cravens, was built in 1940. If you go up like 2 blocks north on Woodlawn, you'll run into the Hill. Those buildings were built in 1960. And then if you go down 10th Street just a few blocks, you'll run into Hillcrest, which is our apartments. That was built in 1950, but Collins did not access any of those rooms until the 1980s. So it's a fairly new thing for Collins to have.
Collins is beautiful. It has a huge front courtyard, archways, and gnomes.
Okay, we don't understand the meaning behind those either. No one really does. The really cool thing about them though is that before like the 60s, only men lived here. And if you go to where Memorial Hall, Sycamore Hall, Goodbody, and Morrison Hall are, go to that quad and you go to Goodbody and you go through the door that's from the courtyard and you go up the stairwell, you will come across stained glass windows that are exactly like our gnomes, except instead of gnomes, they are little Victorian girls. So they're like the same size windows, same type of stained glass style, except it's different. And all the girls used to live there before it became like classrooms and office space.
I guess only the gnomes. No.
Collins almost ceased to be a residence hall in the 70s. This was before it was actually called Collins. It was called the Men's Residence Center. But the university wanted to turn it into offices and not have students live there anymore. And there was actually a big protest movement called the Save MRC campaign, where students and staff and alumni protested about that change, and they actually got the university to keep it as a residence hall. And right after that, in 1972, was when they started the Living Learning Center there and brought in a lot of the special programs that Collins has today. So there's always been a very high level of student engagement and student involvement and passion about the experience of living there.
We have a lot of really great things to offer the students here, like the arts facilities on the Hill. We have looms where people can learn how to weave. We have sewing machines, and we have a little theater and a dark room.
They have their own yearbook. They've got a ceramics studio, just a lot of opportunities for art and poetry and everything you could possibly do, and if they don't have it, you can make it.
Well, there's a spiffy little spot right here on the veranda. If you stand and then you speak into the curve of the wall, it echoes back at you. It sounds like the center of the universe, so it's called the center of the universe. My favorite place to hang out is the Cheshire Cafe, and this spot is my favorite place to just sit and bask.
We often have drum circles at Collins. It's a pretty common experience. But there was this one really epic drum circle that happened that lasted, I think, 4 hours. I was there for an hour. I went to class. I came back. It was still going on. People were dancing. There must have been like 15 people playing, and not just drums. We had a couple saxophones. We had trumpets. We had, tambourines. We had, flutes, guitars. The whole thing. And people would come and go. A couple people would come in that hadn't been there before. People that were there at the beginning had to leave, but the energy just kept up.
We had a group of Ghostbusters running after a ghost down in the coffee house earlier this year. That was pretty funny.
Can't tell you how many times I ran around the courtyard like a crazy person. People hanging in trees and just sitting outside for hours until like 4 in the morning when you have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's always good.
Collins has 2 sets of classes. Q classes required for freshmen and sophomores teach the resources on campus and around Bloomington. However, these classes do not compare to the seminars.
They are selected by our Board of Educational Programmers, which is a student group. It's also known as BOEP. The members of BOEP, they interview all the prospective instructors that they're interested in. We usually get between 40 and 60 proposals, and we have to narrow it down between 6 and 8.
We usually like them to be interdisciplinary within departments, the sorts of classes that can't really fit in with the box that a department gives to grad students or professors interested in teaching courses. There's a really wide range, but they're all kind of idiosyncratic. There's a course that was proposed by a fellow who wanted to talk about the folklore and, ethnography of Star Trek, and how anthropological methods could be used to understand different cultures in the galaxy of Star Trek. And then also like studying the fandom of Star Trek and, how that all has played out over the different succeeding generations of Star Trek as a series. Another course, a little heavier topic, it's called Pain, Death, and the Law. A fairly heavy class, but uses a lot of imagery and poetry to sort of get at some topics normally only handled in an academic way.
Probably the one that is best known on campus is the Beatles class, now taught through the School of Music by Professor Glenn Gass. That was originally taught as a Collins course in the 80s, and now it's insanely popular, and there are over 300 students in it every semester.
So love it or hate it, Collins is here to stay. Its namesake, the former headmaster, professor, and tennis coach, Ralph L. Collins, would be so proud.
We used to have people drive past when a bunch of Collinsites were out in the courtyard and yell freak or hippie at us. I'm fine with it. They don't know what they're missing out on.